signal, and most seniors are missing it every single day? Stay with me, because by the end you'll understand why one simple fruit-based protein strategy may surprise you, and why it's not about eggs at all. As we age, gradual muscle loss becomes more noticeable, a process widely discussed by organizations like the NIH and Mayo Clinic under the term age-related muscle decline. This change does not mean growth is impossible, it means the body responds differently than it once did. Think of your muscles like a rechargeable battery. In your 30s or 40s, that battery charges quickly from small inputs, a short walk, a modest meal, a decent night's sleep. After 75, the battery still charges, but it needs a stronger, clearer signal. Research summaries available through PubMed explain that older muscles can become less responsive to small amounts of dietary protein, a concept often described as anabolic resistance. This simply means the body may require more intentional nutrition and movement patterns to stimulate maintenance and growth. Harvard Health publications emphasize that resistance activity remains beneficial in later decades, supporting the idea that muscle tissue adapts at almost any age when properly stimulated. Many seniors assume eating more protein automatically solves the issue. However, digestion and absorption efficiency may shift over time. The Cleveland Clinic has discussed how stomach acid levels and digestive enzyme production can change with age, potentially influencing how well nutrients are broken down and absorbed. If protein is not effectively digested, the muscles do not receive the full benefit. That is where fruit-based strategies become interesting, not because fruit protein is magically superior, but because certain fruits contain natural enzymes and antioxidants that may support digestion and reduce oxidative stress. For example, fruits like pineapple contain bromelain and kiwi contains actinidin, enzymes studied in digestive health discussions and clinical literature indexed on PubMed. While these are not muscle-building compounds by themselves, improved digestion may help the body utilize dietary protein more efficiently. Additionally, inflammation tends to increase subtly with age, sometimes called inflammaging in scientific discussions. Institutions like the NIH have explored how chronic low-grade inflammation can influence muscle maintenance. Antioxidant-rich whole fruits may support overall cellular health as part of a balanced dietary pattern. This does not mean fruit replaces protein-rich foods such as eggs, dairy, legumes, or fish. Instead, it highlights that nutrient synergy matters. Pairing easily digestible protein with whole fruits may create an environment where the body is better prepared to use what it consumes. Another overlooked factor is lifestyle rhythm. The CDC recommends regular strength-based activity for older adults, emphasizing that muscle responds to resistance. Nutrition without movement provides raw materials, but resistance provides the signal for adaptation. When protein intake aligns with simple resistance activity, such as controlled chair stands or light resistance band exercises, the body receives both instruction and building blocks. Sleep also plays a role. The NIH explains that restorative sleep supports hormonal balance related to tissue repair. Poor sleep patterns may interfere with recovery processes that are essential for maintaining muscle. Altogether, credible health organizations consistently reinforce a shared message. Aging changes responsiveness, not potential. By combining adequate protein, supportive whole foods like fruit, gentle resistance activity, and consistent sleep, older adults create a coordinated signal that encourages muscle maintenance. The key insight is not that one food is dramatically better than another, but that digestion, timing, and lifestyle patterns influence how effectively the body uses nutrition after 75. After the age of 75, the body processes protein differently than it did decades earlier. And this shift has been widely discussed in research summaries available through PubMed, as well as educational materials from Harvard Health and the Mayo Clinic. Scientists often refer to this change as anabolic resistance, which simply means that aging muscles do not respond as strongly to small amounts of protein as younger muscles do. Imagine pressing a doorbell that used to ring loudly with the lightest touch. Now you must press it more firmly for the same response. The muscle-building machinery is still present, but it needs a clearer and sometimes slightly stronger signal. According to explanations provided in NIH-supported research, muscle protein synthesis The process where the body repairs and builds muscle tissue can become less sensitive to dietary amino acids over time. This does not mean growth stops entirely, rather it means strategy becomes more important. One common habit among seniors is spreading very small amounts of protein evenly across meals, without ensuring any single meal contains enough to meaningfully stimulate muscle protein synthesis. Harvard Health publications have discussed how adequate protein per meal can be more impactful than minimal intake scattered lightly throughout the day. When portions are too small, the signal to build or maintain muscle may not fully activate. Additionally, digestion efficiency may decline with age. The Cleveland Clinic has noted that reduced stomach acid production and slower digestive processes can influence how well protein is broken down into amino acids. If protein is not fully digested, the bloodstream receives fewer building blocks and muscles receive a weaker repair signal. Eggs are often praised as a high-quality protein because they contain all essential amino acids. That remains true. However, quality on paper does not always equal optimal use in every individual. Factors such as appetite reduction, dental issues, medication interactions, and gastrointestinal sensitivity can influence how comfortable and consistent protein intake becomes. The NHS and Mayo Clinic both emphasize that older adults may experience reduced appetite, which can lead to lower overall nutrient intake. If someone eats less overall, even nutrient-dense foods may not be consumed in sufficient amounts. This is why ease of digestion and meal timing matter alongside protein source. Another layer involves inflammation and metabolic efficiency. Research accessible through PubMed describes how low-grade chronic inflammation may interfere with muscle maintenance pathways. When the internal environment is slightly inflamed, the muscle-building signal can be dampened. This is one reason balanced dietary patterns rich in whole foods are often encouraged by organizations like the NIH. It is not about eliminating one food and replacing it with another dramatically, but about supporting the entire system. So protein can be effectively used. Hydration also plays a subtle but meaningful role. The CDC highlights that older adults may have a reduced sense of thirst, and mild dehydration can affect physical performance and recovery capacity. Muscles are largely composed of water, and cellular processes involved in protein synthesis rely on adequate fluid balance. If hydration is inconsistent, nutrient transport can be less efficient. Sleep further influences protein utilization. NIH sleep research explains that restorative sleep supports hormonal processes linked to tissue repair. When sleep is fragmented, recovery signals may not operate optimally. The combined message from credible health institutions is consistent. Aging changes responsiveness, not possibility. Muscle still adapts when it receives coordinated signals, adequate digestible protein, resistance movement, sufficient rest, hydration, and balanced nutrition. The difference after 75 is that small passive habits may no longer be enough. Intentional patterns, ensuring meaningful protein at meals, supporting digestion, staying active with gentle resistance, and prioritizing recovery create a clearer signal. Rather than focusing solely on whether one protein source is superior to another, the emphasis shifts toward how effectively the body can digest, absorb, and respond to the protein consumed within a supportive lifestyle framework. When most people hear the word fruit, they think of sweetness and natural sugars, not muscle support. However, nutrition science shows that muscle health is not influenced by protein alone. It is shaped by digestion, inflammation balance, and overall nutrient synergy. Institutions such as the Cleveland Clinic and Harvard Health frequently explain that how well the body absorbs nutrients can be just as important as how much is consumed. After age 75, digestive efficiency may decline due to reduced stomach acid production and slower enzyme activity, topics discussed in clinical overviews indexed on PubMed. If protein is not fully broken down into amino acids, the bloodstream receives fewer of the building blocks required for muscle repair. Certain fruits contain natural enzymes that assist digestion. For example, pineapple contains bromelain, and kiwi contains actinidin, both of which have been studied for their role in protein breakdown. Research summaries available through PubMed describe how these enzymes may support the digestive process by helping proteins break into smaller peptides and amino acids. This does not mean fruit replaces protein sources such as eggs, legumes, dairy, or fish. Instead, it suggests that pairing protein-rich foods with enzyme-containing fruits may improve digestive comfort and efficiency in some individuals. Another important factor is oxidative stress. The NIH has discussed how aging is associated with increased oxidative stress, which can influence muscle maintenance over time. Oxidative stress occurs when there is an imbalance between free radicals and antioxidants in the body. While it is a natural part of metabolism, excessive levels may interfere with normal cellular repair processes. Whole fruits are rich in antioxidants such as vitamin C, polyphenols, and carotenoids. Harvard Health publications often emphasize that diets rich in colorful fruits and vegetables support overall cellular resilience. By contributing antioxidants, fruit may help create a more supportive internal environment for muscle recovery when combined with adequate protein and resistance activity. Inflammation also plays a subtle role. Research discussed by the NIH refers to low-grade chronic inflammation that can develop gradually with age. This does not mean disease is present, but it reflects mild, persistent immune activation that may influence muscle metabolism. Nutritional patterns rich in whole plant foods, including fruits, are frequently associated in observational research with healthier aging markers. The NHS highlights that balanced dietary patterns, rather than isolated superfoods, are linked to better long-term outcomes. Therefore, fruit becomes part of a broader supportive strategy rather than a standalone solution. A common misunderstanding is that fruit's natural sugar automatically makes it unsuitable for older adults. The CDC explains that whole fruit differs from added sugars because it contains fiber, water, and micronutrients that slow digestion and moderate blood sugar response. Fiber also supports gut health, and emerging research summarized in PubMed suggests that gut microbiome balance may influence metabolic and inflammatory pathways. While this area continues to develop, digestive health is increasingly recognized as interconnected with overall wellness. Importantly, fruit-based protein products such as plant proteins combined with fruit enzymes may feel lighter and easier to tolerate for individuals who struggle with heavier meals. The Cleveland Clinic notes that appetite changes are common in older adults, and easier to digest meals may encourage more consistent nutrient intake. Consistency matters because muscle maintenance depends on repeated signals over time rather than occasional large efforts. In this context, fruit's role is supportive, not superior in isolation. It may enhance digestion, provide antioxidants, contribute fiber, and encourage dietary variety. When paired thoughtfully with adequate protein intake and gentle resistance exercise, fruit becomes one component of a coordinated muscle support strategy grounded in principles discussed by respected institutions such as the NIH, Harvard Health, the Mayo Clinic, the NHS, and the CDC. Muscle tissue does not grow simply because protein is consumed, it grows because it is challenged. This principle is consistently emphasized by major health organizations such as the CDC and the NHS, both of which recommend strength-based activity for older adults as part of healthy aging guidelines. After the age of 75, muscles remain biologically capable of adaptation, but they require a clear mechanical signal to maintain or increase strength. Without resistance, the body interprets unused muscle as unnecessary and gradually reduces it to conserve energy. The NIH explains in educational materials on aging that muscle protein synthesis, the process responsible for repairing and building muscle fibers, is stimulated most effectively when nutritional intake is paired with resistance activity. In simple terms, protein provides the building blocks, but movement tells the body where those blocks are needed. Resistance does not mean heavy gym training or intense workouts. Research summaries available through PubMed indicate that even moderate, controlled resistance exercises can stimulate muscle protein synthesis in older adults. The key factor is muscle tension, not speed or intensity. Slow, deliberate movements create time under tension, which sends a stronger signal to muscle fibers. Harvard Health publications often explain that slower repetitions can enhance muscle engagement and reduce injury risk, particularly for seniors. For example, standing up from a chair in a controlled manner repeatedly, performing wall push-ups, or using light resistance bands can provide sufficient stimulus when done consistently. These activities are accessible, adaptable, and aligned with safety-focused recommendations from the Mayo Clinic, which emphasizes gradual progression and proper form. One common mistake is assuming that walking alone is enough for muscle maintenance. Walking is excellent for cardiovascular health, and the CDC strongly supports regular aerobic activity for heart and metabolic health. However, aerobic movement primarily benefits endurance and circulation rather than significantly stimulating muscle growth. Muscles require resistance, force applied against them, to signal adaptation. Another frequent misunderstanding is believing that advanced age eliminates the ability to gain strength. Studies referenced on PubMed have shown that older adults, even in their 80s and beyond, can improve strength and functional capacity when engaging in supervised resistance programs. While the rate of adaptation may be slower compared to younger individuals, the capacity for improvement remains present. Timing also plays a role. The NIH discusses how muscle protein synthesis increases after resistance exercise, creating a window where dietary protein may be particularly supportive. Pairing a protein-containing meal with light resistance activity can therefore enhance the body's natural repair response. This does not require precise timing or complex planning, but it highlights the importance of consistency. Small, repeated sessions throughout the week often produce better long-term outcomes than occasional intense efforts. Safety is essential. The NHS advises that older adults begin gradually, especially if they have been inactive, and consult healthcare providers when necessary. Proper posture, controlled breathing, and avoiding sudden jerking motions reduce strain on joints. The Mayo Clinic also emphasizes balance exercises as improved strength contributes to fall prevention, a significant concern in later years. Ultimately, credible institutions consistently reinforce that muscle is dynamic tissue, responsive to demand at almost any age. Nutrition prepares the body, but resistance directs the adaptation. By integrating simple, safe strength movements into daily routines, older adults provide the necessary stimulus for muscle maintenance, supporting mobility, independence, and overall quality of life. Muscle repair does not only happen during movement, much of it takes place quietly during rest, particularly during deep sleep. The NIH has published educational resources explaining that restorative sleep supports hormonal balance, including hormones involved in tissue repair and recovery. During deeper stages of sleep, the body shifts into a repair mode, directing energy toward rebuilding cells, including muscle fibers stressed earlier in the day. If sleep is fragmented or consistently shortened, this recovery window may be reduced. Think of it like renovating a home overnight. If the workers are repeatedly interrupted, progress slows. Harvard Health frequently highlights the importance of sleep for overall metabolic health, noting that insufficient sleep can influence appetite regulation, energy balance, and recovery processes. For older adults, sleep patterns may change due to shifts in circadian rhythm, medication effects, or health conditions, making intentional sleep hygiene even more important. Stress is another overlooked factor. The Cleveland Clinic explains that when the body experiences chronic stress, it produces elevated levels of stress hormones such as cortisol. While cortisol plays an essential role in short-term stress responses, persistently elevated levels may interfere with muscle maintenance by encouraging tissue breakdown over time. The NIH has discussed how chronic stress can influence inflammatory pathways and metabolic function. In older adults, low-grade inflammation, sometimes referred to in scientific literature as age-related inflammatory changes, may subtly affect muscle protein synthesis. Stress does not need to be dramatic to have impact. Ongoing worry, disrupted routines, or poor sleep can all contribute to a heightened stress state. The NHS emphasizes relaxation techniques, consistent daily structure, and moderate physical activity as tools to support mental and physical well-being. Late-night habits can also influence muscle recovery. Eating heavy meals close to bedtime may interfere with sleep quality for some individuals, particularly if digestion becomes uncomfortable. The Mayo Clinic notes that digestive efficiency can change with age, and large meals late in the evening may contribute to reflux or disrupted rest. Poor sleep then reduces the body's natural recovery capacity. Additionally, irregular sleep schedules can confuse the body's internal clock. The CDC recommends maintaining consistent bedtimes and wake times to support circadian rhythm stability. When the internal clock functions smoothly, hormonal cycles related to repair and metabolism operate more predictably. A common mistake is focusing exclusively on diet and exercise while ignoring recovery. Muscle is adaptive tissue, but adaptation requires balance between stress and rest. Overexertion without adequate sleep may increase fatigue and discourage consistency. Conversely, excessive inactivity without any physical challenge leads to gradual muscle decline. The key is rhythm, gentle resistance to stimulate growth, balanced nutrition to provide building blocks, and restorative sleep to complete the repair cycle. Hydration and evening routines also matter. Dehydration can contribute to fatigue and poor sleep quality. The CDC highlights that older adults may experience reduced thirst sensation, making conscious fluid intake important throughout the day. Creating a calming pre-sleep routine, such as dimming lights, limiting stimulating media, and engaging in quiet activities, supports the body's transition into restorative stages of sleep. The NIH emphasizes that consistent behavioral habits can significantly influence sleep quality over time. In summary, respected institutions consistently reinforce that muscle health is interconnected with sleep quality, stress management, and daily rhythm. Nutrition and resistance training initiate the building process, but sleep and stress balance allow it to be completed efficiently. By addressing these often overlooked elements, older adults create a more supportive internal environment for muscle maintenance and overall well-being. Building muscle after 75 is less about dramatic change and more about coordinated daily rhythm. Major health organizations consistently emphasize this balanced approach. The CDC recommends that older adults combine strength-based activities with aerobic movement each week, highlighting that muscles respond to regular challenge regardless of age. The NIH explains that muscle tissue remains metabolically active throughout life, meaning it continues to adapt when given proper stimulus. This is important because many people assume that aging automatically eliminates the ability to build strength. Research summaries indexed on PubMed show that even individuals in their late 70s, 80s, and beyond can improve muscle function with consistent resistance activity. The key difference compared to younger decades is responsiveness. Older muscles may require clearer signals through adequate protein intake, sufficient recovery, and consistent movement patterns. A practical daily rhythm often begins with light morning mobility. Gentle stretching or controlled bodyweight movements help stimulate circulation and joint lubrication. The Mayo Clinic frequently discusses how regular movement supports joint flexibility and reduces stiffness, which can encourage further activity throughout the day. When muscles are activated early, even lightly, the nervous system receives a signal that these tissues are needed. This neurological component matters because strength is not purely about muscle size. It also involves coordination between the brain and muscle fibers. Nutrition then becomes the second signal. Harvard Health publications emphasize that older adults benefit from distributing adequate protein intake across meals rather than consuming very small amounts sporadically. While individual needs vary, research available through PubMed suggests that sufficient protein per meal may more effectively stimulate muscle protein synthesis compared to minimal intake. Pairing protein sources with whole fruits and vegetables adds fiber, antioxidants, and micronutrients that support overall metabolic health. The NIH has discussed how oxidative stress increases gradually with age, and antioxidant-rich dietary patterns may help support cellular resilience. This does not mean any single fruit or food replaces traditional protein sources. Instead, it highlights synergy. For example, combining a digestible protein source with fruits that support digestion may improve comfort and consistency, especially for those experiencing appetite changes. Hydration is another foundational element. The CDC notes that older adults may have a diminished sense of thirst, which can increase the risk of mild dehydration. Muscles are composed largely of water, and cellular processes involved in protein synthesis depend on adequate fluid balance. Even mild dehydration may contribute to fatigue, reducing motivation for movement. Maintaining steady hydration throughout the day supports circulation and nutrient transport, allowing amino acids from protein to reach muscle tissue efficiently. Resistance activity serves as the central trigger for muscle adaptation. The NHS advises that strength exercises for older adults can include simple activities such as chair stands, light resistance band movements, or wall push-ups. Research summaries on PubMed consistently demonstrate that progressive resistance, even at moderate intensity, can improve muscle strength and functional capacity in older populations. The Mayo Clinic emphasizes starting slowly and focusing on controlled form to reduce injury risk. Importantly, pairing resistance activity with protein intake within a reasonable time frame may enhance muscle protein synthesis, as described in NIH-supported physiological research. This coordinated timing does not require precision but benefits from consistency. Recovery completes the cycle. The NIH explains that deep sleep stages are associated with tissue repair processes and hormonal regulation. Without sufficient restorative sleep, muscle rebuilding may be less efficient. Harvard Health highlights that consistent sleep schedules, reduced evening light exposure, and calming pre-sleep routines can improve sleep quality. Stress management also plays a meaningful role. The Cleveland Clinic explains that chronic stress elevates cortisol levels, which, when persistently high, may influence muscle maintenance and metabolic health. Gentle breathing exercises, structured daily routines, and moderate physical activity can support stress regulation. Common mistakes often involve extremes. Some individuals attempt sudden, intense workouts after long periods of inactivity, increasing the risk of strain and discouragement. Others rely solely on diet changes without incorporating resistance activity, limiting muscle stimulation. Another frequent error is skipping meals due to reduced appetite, leading to insufficient protein intake. The NHS and Mayo Clinic both emphasize gradual progression and balanced dietary patterns over restrictive or dramatic approaches. Ultimately, credible health institutions consistently reinforce that aging changes efficiency, not potential. Muscle tissue remains adaptable when supported by adequate nutrition, regular resistance, hydration, restorative sleep, and stress balance. The goal is not perfection, but rhythm, small, repeatable actions that send clear signals to the body. When daily habits align, movement to stimulate, protein to supply, rest to repair,